Good evening. Welcome to another Friday night session of Cat Space. I am Cat. This is Buckets and my mentor Horsey. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, Kat. Yeah, hi, Buckers. Yeah, good. Very good.
So,
This is the Thursday night session that happens on a Friday night this week, is it?
yep, absolutely. So, tonight's topic is homegrown, and the topic we're discussing is quite thought provoking. So, let's get started. The topic is Australia as a republic. First question, would you like to read it out?
Will the ARM, or the Australian Republic movement, be able to influence the whole of Australia into becoming a republic?
Didn't they try about years ago?
They did, but they from what I've researched is that within the next 6 months, which is towards the end of the year, they are looking at introducing a referendum for the whole of Australia to finally address the issue of Australia will need to become a republic. And I did some research on this and I found that the Australian Republic movement are seriously planning to do a actual referendum, which means a massive vote Australia-wide.
When with the royal family popping off, I suppose they might be successful this time because they weren't last time. The other referendum we had 20 years ago was not successful.
That's right.
I think one of the influences that might have been a reason why people didn't want to be a republic was the fear of who was going to be the leader of this republic. And
at the time, the Prime Minister was Paul Keating, so no one wanted him to be the president, I think.
And after that, it was Malcolm Turnbull, and he was losing a lot of popularity really, really quickly. So even he was hated within his own party. So if you have a politician, particularly Prime Minister, who is liked by both sides, it could potentially pass. But again, I guess time will tell.
I mean, let's think about it. I mean, we're in the most amazing country in the world. We've got the best way of life, and we've got a system in place that, well, can't say that works. Trying to work, but
it works better than most countries.
Yeah, it works better than most countries. But if you look at Australia as a whole, we're a Commonwealth. But dare I say, Australia, a republic, is going to be the most explosive, important era in history, because it's going to change our worldview. It's going to change view of each other, of our country, of our flag, our national anthem, the way we live. That's what I'm saying. If this actually comes to fruition 6 months' time, guess what? People are either going to say yes as a whole, or people are going to say no, or we have a division of yes, no.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well, the flag might change. The flag will probably have to change because it won't want the British flag in it anymore.
Yeah.
And there have been people who've been trying to change the Aussie flag for many years. Whether it would, what would the process be if, for choosing of a president, if Australians vote yes to a republic, then what would the first step be? I mean, would the government we have be suddenly dissolved and there would have to be a new election straight away, or would the government continue on and the Prime Minister become the president?
Okay, look, the questions I had, look, I'm going to flip this. And I'm going to use question 5 for the next one, because you brought something very, very important up. If or when Australia becomes a republic, will we turn into America with electing a president and a vice president?
Well, that'll happen anyway. That will definitely happen. But the question will be, how will those presidents actually be voted? Will we as a nation vote for a president, or will it be our constituents that vote for a president? Because currently, I can't actually vote for the Prime Minister of Australia unless he's within my he's within my area. I can vote for
Constituency.
I can vote for maybe someone who's on a federal level, but that may not be the Prime Minister of Australia. That could be someone else.
Mm.
The way
Well,
I
we may well go to have the same system we have now, as far as preferential voting for parties. And I mean, nothing may change. It would just be that the leader of the party that wins the most seats would be the president and not the prime minister.
Right.
And then the vice president instead of the deputy prime minister. So that system may well stay in place, but we would just be a republic instead of a constitutional monarchy.
That's right.
And so there'd be no reference to the royal family. I mean, that'd be just taken out.
Mm.
And the president would be the president, and that's where the buck stops, like it is in America.
Mm.
That's
But
right.
as for whether we're going to become like America, you know, unless we adopt the system of voting that the Americans have, then no in that sense. But as a society, I don't know whether our status as a republic or a monarchy would matter as far as whether our society becomes more Americanized, because some would argue that it already has.
And you're valid and spot on, because the thing is, if we overturn, well, if the Australian people overturn the jurisdiction of this country and voice their opinion strong enough to go, no, we don't want the monarchy, we don't want the Queen, we don't want to be a Commonwealth, we don't want to be part of this issue anymore. We want to be original. We want to be different. But the thing is, if we keep saying we want and we become a republic, we therefore elect, as you said, a president and a vice president of the country. And we run the systematic way of America, which is we elect someone, and then 4 years down the track, we elect them again, or we elect 2 new people to go into the office. But the thing is,
well, my first question is it a guarantee that we're going to follow an American system? Because there are plenty of republics out there that don't follow the American model, like China, for example, where there's only one party, and that's the Communist Party. And you don't have a choice which party basically gets in, because it's always going to be communist. The only real choice that you have is the leader that might lead you, but you don't. But it'll always be communist. So there's a fear maybe that we might change from, say, a party to, if we were to vote party to party, would there all of that just be dissolved and just be one Australian party that stays in, and you just basically have one party, but led by different people?
that's right.
I can't imagine that happening in Australia. Actually, I can't imagine.
Well, I can, because look,
we very nearly had that in Australia
20 years ago.
Well, there was a point in time where the Communist Party of Australia was a real party, and they were hoping to basically make Australia full-time communist all the time. That was a reality, and that could under a republic, that could very easily happen again if we're not careful.
I was also doing my research this week, and I stumbled upon something, God forgive me for saying, Bill Shorten has said, which he said he very much likens the royal family to maths, and I shouldn't dare, I say, bursted out laughing. But then he said, all jokes aside, is that we need to leave the Commonwealth, and I would like for us to start a republic movement. And I read that online, and I was shocked at that. And I thought, well, here we go. We're going to start a conversation that we should be having with each other, with our government, and saying, you're not doing a good enough job for us. That's what.
Did you say comparing Australia to what?
the royal family to mass
Married at First
Australia.
Sight.
As in that
Because they're
television
drama.
program, which I've actually never watched, which appears to have very attractive people who are going to marry each other and they've never seen each other, but they're going to have a good
right.
time because
Have
they're
to
all
be the
good
worst
looking. I mean,
people on the
really.
planet, yeah.
Because the whole look, I know we're going derailing, but he said because the thing is with Harry and Meghan and all the drama, he sort of looks at it as maths, and it's not funny because it's the royal family.
Well,
but
see, I as I've said a few weeks ago, a lot of Australians, I think, find the royal family rather irrelevant to their lives anyway.
yeah, but the thing is,
Whether that's right or wrong, that's the case, and so
that's right.
I don't think a lot of Aussies would mind whether we're a republic or a monarchy, and they wouldn't really care
See,
Well,
as
I'm
long as
I'm
they
in
could
two
do
minds.
what they have to do and get on with their lives, and it doesn't cost them too much to do it, and people don't care.
I'm in two. I agree. I'm in two minds because I have 50. I'm sitting on the fence 50-50. But if where he goes, I would like to start us becoming a republic and a Republican movement. And if that happens, they open the door. It comes down to us again as a society, as citizens, as people who for so long have had enough of our government leading us astray, going into wars, not looking after us. We elected them and are paying our taxpayer money for them to do their jobs, and they're not doing their jobs. And I might get in trouble for this, but the thing is, as I was saying, is that if it becomes a republic, it's going to be a new sort of awakening, but it's going to be a very dangerous one.
yeah,
I
well,
think.
it's interesting that you say that, Kat, is because the thing is, part of the advantage of being in, say, a Commonwealth where you've got a Governor General that stands down the Prime Minister or appoints the Prime Minister is the fact that if there's a situation like a Gough Whitlam situation where the Prime Minister does need to be stood down by a higher official, you can actually do that. But once you remove a Commonwealth and you've got a president that's corrupt, who stands him down? That's the thing. If he's got the top job, who stands him down if it suddenly turns to corruption? And the thing is, that's actually the problem with a lot of republics, particularly in the Congo, where they've got people that literally can't basically stand him down because legally they can't. And so this is where you have things like civil wars and all sorts of things break out because it's the only way to basically take this guy down. So we need to have a system where there's a Governor General-esque person or basically the president's going to be able to veto every single policy that comes through for his own or her own advantage. So we
I
have
think it is true that throughout history there have been more instances of civil war in countries that are republics than there have been countries that are part of the Commonwealth. So you're right there.
Before we move on to the next question, here's what I want to say about this: is that if Australia becomes a republic constitution, will our neighboring sister country, New Zealand, follow suit and think, hang on, they're onto something, they're a republic, therefore we need to follow suit and remove the Union Jack from our flag? And
Possibly, but there's a lot more respect for royalty in New Zealand than there is in Australia, I think. So it would take a while. Yeah, look, I thought regarding corruption, I mean, you can have corruption in any government.
exactly.
And there's always going to be a level of corruption there, as you pointed out, Buckets, a few minutes ago, or was it you, Kat, that said that the government are not doing their jobs, and there are people who are, so that's always going to be there. But the question also is, I mean, yes, there's no higher authority above the president in a republic, and if the president is corrupt, then there's not much you can do. But do we plan for the exception, or do we plan for the norm in that case?
I think
is it generally the case that Republican presidents are corrupt, and need to be removed and can't be removed, or is it generally the case that there are some who are corrupt and most are okay?
Well, the only way I could
Because
see actually getting around it is if Australia had a similar system to the American system, which is
Amendment, having a new amendment, which,
well, what's the word when you can impeach your president?
oh yeah,
So
yes.
if we put an impeachment clause in our
Mm.
constitution that could do that, if there was worries that a president couldn't do their job based off health reasons or based on purely just corruption, then maybe it can work. But there needs to be some policy in play that makes the president know that he's not above the law.
yeah,
Otherwise,
Well, there might need to be changes to the Constitution generally. And obviously all the references to the Queen will be removed, but other changes might be necessary. And the question is, could that be done? Because apparently the Constitution is a document that when it was instituted could not be changed. So yeah, but I mean, it would have to be. And if the system of government changed, and if the status of Australia changed with regard to its place in the Commonwealth or otherwise, then there might well have to be a new constitution written.
yes, I think
Which
so.
may not be a bad thing. But the question is who's going to write it and what say do the Australian people have in what goes in it?
Well, the thing is, it might take a bit of time to write said constitution.
This
It's
is
not
the
like the American one where you've got like 10 rules.
this is the way my mind thinks, and I've been thinking about this. I know we've done this topic before, but I wanted to come back to it because when I read about the Australian Republic movement wanting to do this yet again, I was down in my research, and this is the way my mind thinks: is our government tells us we're a democratic society, we're a democratic government, but if we're a democratic government, then the labor leaders or the labor people are the Republicans. So you've got the left, which are the Democrats, and you've got the right, which are the Labor. And in a strange but peculiar way, I know I sound silly saying this, but I've honestly tried to research thinking they keep saying, oh, this is a democracy, this is democracy, democracy, democracy. You're all talking about democracy, but what democracy is this?
Yes,
Well, so is the United States.
But in Australia, they keep saying, oh, this is a democracy.
Well, in Australia, what we currently have, and it works for us, we have a socialist democracy. So,
which is like America.
Well, I would argue that it's not, because for example, in America, when you go to hospital, you have to pay for it out of your own pocket, and if you can't afford medical fees, then depending on what the illness actually is, then you simply cannot afford to go to hospital.
That's
in
right.
Australia, we have Medicare, and that covers almost everything except for dental, I think.
Yeah.
But that's a socialist system, and so that's why our socialist democracy works. And even things such as cheap transport is also under a socialist system, because without that socialist system, it would be harder to live in Australia. So that's what kind of democracy that we have currently is a socialist democracy. There are other versions of democracies, but I do know this: if you have a 100% democracy, you will have anarchy. 100% anarchy. 100% anarchy equals is the exact same thing as 100% democracy.
That's right. The next question I wanted to ask is,
well, you can't really have that in practice. It doesn't work.
No, because that means that I can basically, if I get enough people to support me in the streets, then I can execute basically anyone I want, and I don't think I should have that power.
It's like the Wild West.
Exactly, it is a Wild West.
Here's the next question that I wanted to ask, which ties into everything, is that Australia as a republic, will new laws affect the very way we live our lives? And I think you've answered that question for me, Horsey, but for me, if we do become a republic and there are new laws, will it affect us? Of course it will. Will it affect our daily lives? I believe so, in so many ways. When it comes down to health, when it comes down to voting, when
It
it comes
depends on the
down to,
policies that are chosen. I mean, if we stay with the current policies on health, we could well do that, and maybe nothing will change. You don't know. I mean, the fact that we're actually changing the system of government doesn't necessarily mean that daily lives for the citizens will change, at least not immediately.
What do you think, Buckets?
I think the daily lives of us being Australian won't really change all that much. Maybe the laws will change. Certainly the policies will change. But who we are as a nation won't really change. Again, America is, again, different. They are sort of similar to us where they have sort of similar things. But there are things about America which Australians would just never do. And I think that we as Australians have this typical stick up for the downtrodden. And for that reason, we wouldn't let our government take full advantage of us in the worst way possible. That will just never change. And I don't think any responsible leader would let that happen anyway.
Well, not if it was a sudden move. I think we do allow the government to take advantage of us by increments, and we get used to the way things are, and then something else changes and it costs us a bit more, and then we get used to that. And there is I mean, I've said before, I think Australians are too gutless to speak up about things that may be an injustice in that way. They just accept that, the law must be good for us, so we better obey the law. And whatever the government does within certain reason is, even though we may not like it, is accepted by Australians. And the only thing that happens is, bit by bit, we just lose respect for those in government because we think, we don't really like what they're doing to us. And it mainly occurs in terms of cost of living. We don't really like it, but we have to accept it because there's not much we can do on our own about it. So, but we just, we may not say anything, but it simmers away in the background and we just lose respect for those in authority. And there's a few people, when it really comes to the crunch, they show that they've lost that respect by behaving in a certain way. So I think that's what Australians do. But we don't seem very good at en masse, demonstrating things en masse, and overturning government decisions which we think are unjust en masse. Australians don't really do that sort of thing.
But here's my question for you, right? What will this mean for Australia in the new era?
Well, like Horsey said, I think, okay, if it happens in one big wave or rush kind of thing, I think Australians won't like that. Very much like, I say, the restrictions of
COVID-19, yeah.
But then again, we'll just kind of get used to it because we'll accept it as fact.
Well, there was a backlash about COVID because it did happen so quickly.
That's right.
People said because it was necessary if it happened quickly. But see, that's the thing. But still, the general population was fairly powerless to do anything about it. I mean, I, as you know, don't really believe that COVID was all that serious and that anything really should have been done about it at all. I know most people don't agree with that. But even if most people thought that way, the question of the rules being overthrown or even ignored by most, it just doesn't seem to happen in Australia. And the government know that. They realise, they know that that's the way we are. So I don't think they would bring in sweeping changes straight away. It'll be more like the frog in the kettle. The frog gets comfortable with the cold water and then the water heats up a bit, and the frog doesn't realise, and eventually the frog dies because the water boils, and the frog doesn't realise because it gets used to it over time. Whereas if the boiling water was tipped straight on the frog's head, it would jump away and say, hey, I'm not having any of that. So Australians are a bit like that, and that's how government treat us. They just, increase the temperature of the water very, very slowly because they know they'll get away with it and they know it'll happen in the end and they know the way to do it. They're very clever.
But see, Americans, on the other hand, if they basically don't like something, well,
They'll protest, they'll fight, and they'll figure it.
They burn things down, they burn buildings down.
And they shoot guns as well. They've got guns all over the place, and that's the thing. And that's the reason why Australians have been the gun laws are brought in, and Australians have basically been disarmed, and the government are really happy about that because it means we won't actually turn into America. Very unlikely.
Here's the question that ties with that is, with this referendum, will it divide Australia? Will it divide us as a country? Will it divide us as a nation? My answer to that is yes, because again, I'm the type of person, like, I'm in two minds over there. I'm sitting on the fence, but some people believe, why fix something if it's not broken? But some people believe it is broken, fix it to a place where we can be free of, the control of Britain, Mother England, or, we don't want to be stuck with England. We don't want to be stuck with the US. We just want to be stuck in Australia. We just want Australian freedom. We just want Australia, to be, its own sovereignty, so to speak.
I think most of the division will come from the political parties, from within the political parties, rather than from the population. Because, as I said before, most of the population, they couldn't give a fig, really. As long as they can live their lives, they don't really care. So the division, if there is division, will come from those with a vested interest and who are after power.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree. So, and I believe you've got a question about the states.
The states.
Oh yeah. Will all states still have power if Australia becomes a republic?
But that's one thing that might actually be dissolved, because like back in the day, there were states, right? So you had New South Wales as a state, and Queensland as a state, and then other states got built, and then Canberra came later. But all those states were put in place because, well, they didn't own the whole country. They just controlled a region of land. But now
the country's too big to govern as a whole, and so that's the reason why we have local government as well. Anyway, go on, Buckets.
But yeah, they didn't want to give up their power when Australia was more united. So the question is, now that if we were to successfully get a republic, would they be forced to dissolve their power, and would they give that up? Because that might be one thing where they go, oh, we don't want a republic if we have to dissolve our Queen's
that's right.
rights. So that's the thing. Who basically will they have, for lack of a better word, the balls to go, I'm willing to dissolve my own power so that Australia is more united and becomes a republic?
No, they won't.
I'm going to throw in a random question I just thought of, and that is, if we do become a republic, right? Oh, I just said, if we do become a republic, that's right. If we do become a republic, will we have our own Independence Day? Because if you look at it, freedom from the British, right? Freedom from Mother England, celebrating Australia. We have Australia Day, we have Anzac Day, but if we remove ourselves from the Commonwealth, will we get our own Independence Day?
Or will we have to have
similar to the States?
We actually might have to have 2 Independence Days if you think about it, because you've
Australia Day and Independence Day.
Yeah. No, seriously, because
if you think about the logic of it, is that we celebrate Australia Day, and that's already been debated about for generations and for decades, ions. But we will have Australia Day. We'll also have Anzac Day, but we will also have Independence Day, which means Australia celebrates a new era. It transforms into its own sort of.
Well, I guess it would replace the Queen's birthday long weekend holiday, wouldn't it? I guess so.
Yeah.
But look, I wonder how patriotic Australians would be. I mean, the 4th of July in the US. Everybody gets into it, don't they? They really do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
more than Australians get into Australia Day.
I mean, I'm not ashamed to say
But-
I celebrate it because I'm huge on it. But the thing
I
is,
just like American food.
but the thing is,
Um,
no. But the thing is, if we look at the seriousness of this issue, is that Anzac Day, Australia Day, we have Remembrance Day, which is similar to Anzac Day, and then following suit instead of the Queen's birthday, as you said, to Independence Day, giving us a 4-day holiday, which means, you know, the right to celebrate who we are as a nation, who we are as citizens, who we are as a country,
Yeah, I reckon so.
what
I
this
mean,
country means to us.
that's what Australia Day is largely, though, isn't it? But
Yeah,
But I wonder about that because we might have an Independence Day, and it'd be great. We might have a. Well, I know you won't be having a sausage on the barbecue because I know, Horsey, you hate those things. But
Have a tofu.
you know, but if we have an Independence Day, I think one of the reasons why the Americans get into it, because the thing is, they actually had to fight for their independence.
that's right.
Whereas
That's right.
us, we might just have to vote. We won't have to kill anyone to get our independence. We just have to basically just put in a piece of paper. So
good question. You just brought something very important up, which
Well,
is
that's why it's so significant to US citizens, because of the fight that was necessary. Anyway, go on, Kat.
but you brought up a very strong, important point, which is what will voting be like for a new Australia as a republic? Are we, and the reason why I ask that is because with my research, I look at it as what will voting be like? Are we going to turn into America 2.0, which it divides? We have the blue and the red, and we have people going, mail-in, like they had mail-in ballots, they had standing in line for hours. They have their online thing. Are we going to do the similar thing, which is if someone who's elderly and sick or overseas and can't vote has to vote overseas in the Australian embassy? Will that mean electronically? Will that mean mail-in ballots, which they send their ballots to Australia for it to be counted? Will it be legislative? Will the
Well, the
voting?
last few elections, we've had a lot of a lot of pre-poll voting happening anyway. And I can't understand. I mean, for some years, I can't understand why the hell voting isn't online for a start. And apart from, I mean, there'll be a few people who wouldn't be able to do it that way and would have to go to an office and cast a vote on paper. That's fine. But why the hell it's not on the web, I don't understand that at all, because the result would be available instantly, or should be.
well, currently, when I was living in my last home in a different area, basically they did have both. They had online voting and also the ballot voting as well, like whether you have to basically write on a piece of paper. And I just remember saying to my friends, well, I love actually going to the actual ballot, because that was a great interest for me, because I loved writing it in and everything like that. But that's only because I had an interest in politics and I love the sausage sizzle. And I was heartbroken when they didn't have sausage sizzles at my local. They had some vegetarian food instead, but they had no sausage sizzle. So you got the win in my area. Damn it.
The thing is,
You know,
as I said, what will voting be like in a new ushered era of independence of Australia, of an independent country that's like a baby?
Well, perhaps we will move to the American model and not have compulsory voting. That'd be a good idea.
That would be a good
I think-
idea.
I couldn't disagree with you.
I agree with you, Horsey. I'm sorry. I've always
no.
believed that it shouldn't be compulsory to vote for someone who, you know, you don't believe in, don't have faith in, you don't trust. Why vote for them when, you know, they're all just the same? They're all going to do the same
So
thing. They're all gonna say the same
why,
thing.
Phil, don't you agree with that? Why have we got such a difference of opinion there?
I disagree with that, because if basically, and let me be absolutely blunt here, because there have been situations where I've been absolutely plastered the night before and still managed to basically get my school shoes on and go up to the voting booth and vote, even though I've just puked out my guts, purely because I knew how important it was and because I didn't want to fine. But it was more.
Well, if you were getting plastered while you were still at school, then we really do have problems. But do go on.
No, it was like I had to find some shoes because my other shoes I couldn't find because anyway, it's another story for another video. Anyway,
Yes.
but basically I needed to vote because I honestly believe that if people like me decided to just sleep in because they were having a hangover the night before, there might be someone in government that we completely disagree with, that we don't like, and that we would be like, well, thanks to your non-voting, that person got in. And
Oh, yes, of course, that's always the case. But you're one of the ones who would vote because you actually care. Whereas whatever percentage of the Australian population who are forced to vote, they go along. I mean, what you're forced to do is to go along and turn up and have your name crossed off. What you do with the ballot paper is nobody's business. You can do whatever you like. You can draw a picture of Mickey Mouse, or you can put a big cross through everything, or you can whatever you like. No one checks that. So I mean, for that reason, among others, I think the system of compulsory voting is a bit silly. Because if you don't care, if people don't care, I mean, whatever percentage of the vote that goes through, and the government is chosen, and local members are chosen on the strength of a fairly large percentage of the population who go along and they're forced to tick a box, and they either tick the box because they think, oh, okay, fine, don't know who they are, don't care. Half the time, people don't research the candidates properly. They don't know who they are, and they have to vote for a certain number of candidates. They have to number every box. And so they're actually casting a vote for candidates they don't understand what their policies are. They don't really care. So those votes, they're invalid. They're no good. They're not actually, they're not legitimate votes in my view.
well, my friend, and I'm not going to mention which friend because that'll expose his thing. We'll probably get sued on the channel and we can't afford. But my friend literally said, F you, John Howard, when John Howard was in power. And I said to him, if you didn't like John Howard, just don't vote for John Howard, because your vote just wouldn't be counted anyway.
That's right. That's right.
Here's
That's what I'm
another
talking
random
about. I mean,
question.
I remember one council election when the fellow who used to be the mayor in my local area had recently passed away, and on the ballot paper, I drew another box and put his name there and ticked it and voted for him, even though he passed away. So that's what I mean. It's things like that are possible. Anyway, it's just
Here's another
we've
random question.
talked around that, I think, now.
Here's another random question. With the voting that we do now, which is compulsory, the way we vote now, if we're a republic and voting isn't compulsory or necessary, will the voting be any different than to vote for when it comes down to a president, vice president? Will there be a more sort of a new sort of what they call it a in America, they broke the barrier basically when they voted for Biden and Harris, which record number. Will the voting that we vote now, will it have record number voting for the first time in Australian history to vote for two people to go into government rather than voting for, say, member of parliament and their government, their constituents, and I'll just put 1, 2 under these people. When it comes to the president and vice president, will that be sort of a new breakthrough in voting numbers, and will that mean that there's less suppression of people unsure of who they want to vote for and who they trust?
I don't think it'll change much, because as long as that's compulsory voting, the government will naturally know how many votes one party is going to get against the other. And that's why we have polling, so that they know that how many votes are going to come through, because if they don't vote, they're going to get a fine. So they kind of roughly know the numbers, and most Australians won't just not vote for the sake of basically getting a fine. I've known about caseworkers that hate it so much that they don't even bother, and then they get a fine. But in that case, all they have to do is just mark their address off, and that's it.
That's right.
But I think the government knows exactly how many people will potentially vote based off age, and also based off previous votes. Where those votes go to, that's a little harder to predict, but it's still predictable in a way.
Mm.
This is not a mirror.
No, I'm just fixing it. But
But I was one of the things I don't think was doesn't matter how people vote or whether it's done by computerized or actually physically actually showing up to a booth to vote, a voting booth to vote. It won't really matter all that much, to be honest. It won't be like the US where there's record numbers of vote, because prior to that, no one gave a damn.
But here's what I think, right, is that we see America as, you know, when they vote, they campaign and they campaign hard and they have the people on either side. But they also have, I know this is going to sound weird of me, but they also have their celebrities and their VIPs, right?
Mm.
So when it comes to us campaigning, well, we have the start of a revolutionary campaign by celebrities endorsing an Australian president and vice president.
I hope that never happens, but you know what? I wouldn't rule it out, because, you know, if it means that one party actually gets more votes due to a celebrity endorsement, I mean, that could be in someone's favor. But you know what I've noticed about Australian culture as opposed to American culture is that celebrity endorsements work for the Americans purely because they look at celebrities as kings, queens, and gods. But in Australia, we don't fall for that crap. Excuse the language. And the reason why we don't is because we can see through someone's celebrity status, and we just want to see what actually works for us.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. We don't, do we? Yeah, you're right. Which is good. But otherwise, we'd have Russell Crowe or Kylie Minogue as president. Actually, that might not be a bad thing.
What, Russell Crowe's from New Zealand? That'd be extremely bad thing.
I think he's a pretty honest bloke, though. I think he'd be all right.
Yeah. All right. Let's second to last question.
Better
second
than
to last question. What
better than
happens?
Mr. Shorten, but anyway.
Right, yes, that's true. I mean, I'd have to say, right, yeah.
Okay.
Second to last question, I promise. Second to last question, I promise. What happens if the referendum gets approved?
Well, I suppose,
have a
move to
celebration,
becoming
we
a
have to
republic, and someone works it out how it's all going to hang together. I guess
I don't know. Yeah, like I
it
like
won't
I
be
said,
me.
I see. That's why I'm sitting on the fence. I'm 50-50 with this, because if it does get approved, say, right, but if it does get approved, does that mean we go into less wars? We go into more wars?
That's interesting, because if see, we generally follow the US into conflicts, or we have in the last few decades, rather than the UK. I can't remember the last time the UK was at war and we were following. Was it the Second World War?
Well, they do join us, but we seem to want to follow our US brothers and sisters more frequently, because we get something out of it. So we get trade deals thanks to the US, and we also get a piece of the pie, and they take, because the US has a massive military, they take care of us. So I
don't think it'll change then.
Between the US, no, that won't actually change. And you know what? We've had such a good history with England already. I mean, we might become a republic, but I don't think the alliances will change. I think
No, that's a point. We probably will still be friendly with the UK. Yeah, perhaps things will stay the same regarding our involvement with other countries' causes.
And last question for the night is, what would this mean for jobs and tourism?
Tourism.
Well, let's see. I think not much will change. I don't think a referendum would really change any of that. I mean, there might be. If a few policies get changed, that might change a couple of jobs. It might increase jobs. It might decrease jobs. If there is a referendum and we say goodbye to the Queen, there might be some trade issues that they'll go, well, since you're a republic, we don't have to fund anything from Australia anymore.
But we don't send our taxpayers' money to the Queen.
Actually, I
think we do.
There is a small percentage that we do. They
No,
still
but
get
if we,
paid.
I'm saying if we become a republic, then we won't have to send our money to the Queen, our taxpayers' money.
No.
No. We'll
But
actually
as
be
far
better
as-
off.
As far as tourism goes, I don't know about that. I mean, whether it's not as if English people come out here to visit the colonies anymore. So I don't, if international travel is ever possible again, given I think they're planning on starting it again in a few months, but I don't know whether it would make any difference to tourism.
Yeah, well, it depends. So, like, when basically the Queen or any of her children or any of the princes basically come over to Australia, we pay for that. We pay for that hardcore. But at the same time, there are people that do love the royals because everyone
Yes.
queens, because it's basically in every fairy tale. Everyone wants to be a princess. Everyone wants to be a prince. And that does bring in tourist dollars. But we pay every time they show up to our country, we pay millions. And that comes out of our pocket. Okay. So
I would like to see at the end of the day, if we become a republic, who we will put on our money and our coins. Does that mean we replace
That's a point. Yes.
a president or a vice? Will we have the president or vice president on our dollar notes, on our coins, on our cents? Does that mean
Or a picture of Parliament House, like the Americans have a picture of the White House? But I'd like to see one thing go on the coins. I'd like to see like the Americans have. I think they still have it. I'm not sure. They have "In God We Trust" printed on there. That'd be good. That's my
also have
final
I'm a
comment.
jelly donut as well.
No, but if you look at it, right? If you look at it, they have presidents of the past. They've got Thomas
Not
Jefferson.
sure
They've got
how to respond to that, but anyway.
they've got Thomas Jefferson. They've got, who else have they got in their president? But with us, I would like to see what kind of,
On the banknotes.
yeah.
Well, we've got didn't we have sheep on one of the banknotes at one stage? We've got sort of famous people rather than political figures, haven't we? Largely, there might be one or two.
We had Banjo Patterson on our $10 bill.
Henry Lawson, I think, was on one of them too. But yeah, we have. Well, I mean, we don't really have political figures on our money.
It might be interesting to put maybe Eddie Margot on some of our currency.
New Zealanders, they have Sir Edmund Hillary on their $5 note. So we will probably need a great person to put on our dollar notes and our cents and our coins, I think.
Well, I'll opt for that. You can put me on there.
Hey, what about Horsey? I mean, no more should need to be said really about that. It's just
that goes without saying.
Yeah, I think
everyone
we'll
will
create a
everyone
200
will
bill just for you, and we'll put your head on it. How about that?
sounds like fun. I know.
Yeah, actually, given Horsey's financial status, I think it would be more appropriate to put Horsey's picture on the dollar coin, or the 50-cent piece, really.
Cat's face.
Yes.
with the three of us on there.
Yeah, that's right.
But only because anything less than the 50-cent piece soon probably won't exist because it's not worth much. Good night all.
Good night.
Will that do?
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday, hopefully.
And welcome everybody who's got in the last couple of weeks, and with the
subscribe
growth in number of people who are
that's what
which is why I've thought I'd better get a better camera this week. It's not
we would like to say welcome to the new subscribers, welcome to the old subscribers. Don't forget to push that notification bell for all podcasts and content. Let us know if there's a topic you'd like us to cover. Leave that in the comment section below. We do have a Facebook page that we run, so follow us on there, and invite your friends, let them share in it, and we'll give you a shout out, and we'll talk about all the other topics. Just press like and let us know what you think, and we'd love for you guys to join the journey.
Oh yes, and we'd also like to say that on the Harry and Meghan Markle podcast that we did,
We've reached 171 views.
yes, so that's kind of a record for us.
4 likes.
And yes, and so thank you very much for watching.
Yeah,
and we have been
really
noticing, and we really do appreciate
yeah,
what you've been doing with us.
for all of us. So thank you.
Uru.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.